What's up, everybody? My name is Miles Stewart.
And I'm Caleb Thomas, and welcome to the Policy Podium podcast. Today, we'll be talking about the Democratic National Convention and how it's using celebrities to influence young voters in this upcoming election.
So as Caleb has already touched on a little bit, this year we're seeing a difference in the trends, or at least an attempt to change a difference in the trends. So across the past couple of elections, we're seeing an issue with young voter turnout. We're seeing little to no young voter turnout because they're not motivated to come to the polls. And so as a result, this year the DNC has tried to use young media, a media that applies to young people in order to pull votes for their side. This year we've seen people such as Zendaya and Olivia Rodrigo and Amanda and comedians and other bands come out, and they're doing this in order to stimulate the minds of these young voters. Now, Caleb, as a young person yourself, how do you feel about people like Olivia Rodrigo and her coming out and performing for the DNC?
I don't know if they apply to all groups of people, but definitely it helps pull some voters because I know some of my friends will really enjoy that kind of content.
Personally, I'm a Drake fan, so whoever gets Drake out there, that's where you got my vote at.
Word.
But talking a little bit more about politics, this ties into politics. So the DNC is doing this in the political role of voter mobilization. So the goal is to get people to the polls in order to increase the support for their party. This also ties into campaign support and election strategy. This is them funding on national, local, and state levels, training these people, getting data and getting resources for these campaigns in order to increase their ability to win this election. This also includes developing and implementing election strategies for these individual candidates. Talking a little bit more about that, we have party organization and leadership. So the Democratic National Convention is not just a convention of one place or one people, but it's the entirety of the party communicating the party's values and the platform in order to have one entire set ideas that they're focusing on when they're going into the political spaces this year. And lastly, there's fundraising. So the fundraising is mostly used for, the election campaigns and things like such as like party activities and candidates activities and other election efforts. And so this is what they're trying to focus on this year.
In terms of the government side of things, away from politics, the DNC serves mainly two reasons. The first one is to use the DNC in order to push policies that the candidates that are running are standing for, such as immigration and things of that nature that are big in terms of the campaigns that they're trying to run. On top of that, just in general, the elected officials that are running for these offices, whether it be the presidential, like Kamala Harris, or smaller senator roles or other delegates in that sense. So they're just trying to get more exposure through the Democratic National Convention and get more people to see their campaigns in general.
And then delving into a little bit more what the Democratic National Convention is. It occurs over multiple days, and this is the conglomeration of all of these Democratic individuals coming together in order to get their platforms, party ideals, and their values all as one idea, as we mentioned a little bit earlier. And so now we're going to transition into a young voter himself. His name is Caden Upton, and we're going to allow him to talk a little bit about how these celebrities are influencing his vote in the upcoming 2024 election.
Hello, my name is James Travers, and I'm here with our special guest, Caden Upton. I'm going to give him a second to introduce himself.
Hey guys, my name is Caden Upton. I am 18 and I'm from Marietta, Georgia.
All right, so I'm asking him a few questions. So the first one is, how did celebrities featured in the Democratic National Convention influence your voting decisions?
So my celebrity crush growing up was always Zendaya, and she's a big fan of Kamala Harris, so that's who I'm going for this year.
Okay, so outside of celebrities, how did the DNC influence your opinions on the Democratic Party in a whole?
The way they present their policies, such as immigration, healthcare, and social justice, just really affects me in a way, and it's just so wholehearted.
Thank you for coming on our show today and sharing your opinions on the DNC. I'm going to transition it back to our hosts, Miles and Caleb.
And we're back. Thank you guys for meeting us again, and thank you to Caden Upton for coming in today and for his interview and his input on the upcoming election. So now, seeing as we are a partisan platform, we want to talk a little bit about how the RNC's strategy was slightly different from the DNC. Because the two separate entities, the RNC strategies this year was slightly different, or maybe not so slightly different. And so Caleb is going to talk a little bit about the difference in strategy that we saw within the RNC.
The Republican National Convention happened a couple weeks ago, and its main point was emphasizing on existing beliefs rather than bringing in new ones. They wanted to emphasize their loyalty to the party, while the DNC was more focused on bringing in celebrities to engage new people onto their party. So overall, the RNC was more focused on emphasizing their tradition and loyalty, while the DNC was invested in unity between all people, Republican or Democrat, and creating progress between the two.
So, delving a little bit into the similarities and differences between the DNC and the RNC, ideally, we see that the DNC is extremely focused on progressivism, as we see things like LGBTQ and immigration and social justice being pushed, whereas the RNC is going to focus a little bit more on conservatism, where we see things like economic policy being discussed, and not so progressive values, but instead conservative and traditional values, which has kind of been the MA the entire creation. And so with that being said, we are going to conclude our podcast episode for the day. My name is Miles.
I'm Caleb.
And this is the Policy Podium.
Once again, thank y'all for watching the podcast, and make sure you stay tuned in to watch the next episode.